I'll give you three different narratives of the three different countries altogether. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, now let's talk about India, Oman, and Nigeria. Okay, three different countries, three different geographies, and three completely different economies. Okay, whereas Oman is a very developed country, a very developed economy, has no challenges like India or Nigeria. India is a developing country, has a very different set of people, has a very price or let's say value centric people, and they have a different set of thinking when it comes to economics. Now let's talk about Nigeria. Very upgrowing, very strong, I would say, but still not at par with multiple, economies of many countries. Okay. Now
Hmm.
all three of them actually view this, stable currency from their own set of perspective. If I have to give you one example, let's talk about Oman. So Oman, what they think that the stable currency becomes a base layer for their all DeFi or fintech movement that they will have in the future in their country. So
Hmm.
again, that works as a Therasio model where they can have the stable currency, and it can be used by multiple fintech companies, payment gateways, multiple institutions in order to have this conversation, interaction. Because let's be very frank, now, every country has UPI set of model. Even if they, if even if they, let's say implement what UPI has done in India, there's still going to be challenges. Let's say, for
Hmm.
example, let's take Germany. If India implements UPI in Germany, Germany is a very cash-centric country. They seldom use even debit or credit cards, to be frank. They use it very, very less for a very developed economy. So that's what. So this is where stable currencies come into play. Onboarding, offboarding can only be done once. You just have to worry about onboarding and offboarding of any user, any institution, or the country itself just once. Once you are onboarded, you can actually seamlessly throughout your ecosystem, wherever your token is accepted, you can go there, interact with that particular protocol, DeFi, in fact, fintech if they accept it. You can go everywhere, and at the end of the day, when you want to realize it in your bank account, you can realize by one simple offboarding. That's it. So actually, the common point is it becomes very easy to interact with multiple, other sets of protocols, DeFi, be it fintech, or things that are going to be used in the future. So it becomes very easy for a person to seamlessly travel from product to product, protocol to protocol, or user to user in that case. Okay. So onboarding and offboarding depends, it depends on the kind of regulation you are, it depends on the kind of, uh, software or hardware you use. But at the very same time, it's just a one-time job. Once you're inside the system, you're very free to roam around. But I was talking about Oman. So Oman sees it as a base layer for whatever DeFi or fintech development that they're going to do in future can be done on this particular stable currency, and they realize that it's very different from CBDC, because CBDC is, definitely again kind of a cryptocurrency that is being given out by the government for a certain set of responsibilities. That's it. It's not as free as stable currencies. And let me talk about stable currencies in country like Nigeria. So for them, stable currencies acts as a hedge against volatility in the crypto market. Now, why did I say hedge against volatility or inflation? Because let me tell you one thing, that the Nigerian naira is also falling as compared when compared to dollar. At the very same time, Nigeria is not a very crypto-friendly country. But without being a crypto-friendly country, they are growing at the rate of 1,700 to 2,000% per annum. This means that people in that country are struggling to have second source of income, and cryptocurrency becomes their second source of income. Trading cryptocurrencies becomes a very good second source of their income. So for that country, stable coins becomes a hedge against inflation, or maybe a hedge against their own volatility of their tokens. So for them it is different. Again, for India it is different. It becomes a place where they can park and use it. They can park their assets and then use it for future considerations. So that is, I mean, every country has a different take on what they use their stable currencies for. I mean, there's no common point, but the common point being, I mean, it's a seamless interaction between multiple products as a user. So, I mean, that is the base that I'm actually keeping.
Okay, so this basically becomes like, as you said, a baseline for users to, start and continue with
Yes.
in their journey for multi-staking.
Right.
All
Right.
right. So
Right.
it adds a layer of convenience there.
Yep. Yep. Definitely does.
So you had mentioned that, the token is like a governance token and the holders can participate in the
Mhm.
decision-making process. So is this live
Right.
currently, or is this something that is going to become live in the coming months?
It is going to become live after our TG. It will become live
All right. Okay. So right
because
now, people
governance
can
is going to
accumulate.
happen on. Yeah,
Chain.
right now they
Yeah.
can accumulate. Yeah, right now they can accumulate. Right now we are doing our IDO on multiple platforms, and if you can participate on those IDO platforms, I don't know, there are certain maybe rules, restrictions, or sometimes they're open. And
Hmm.
if not, then you can participate while we are going TG. So definitely, I mean, you can definitely participate once you have those tokens, and the announcements will be made, consecutive. Every month there's going to be a new announcement. An epoch cycle will be decided where you will understand whether you have to participate, not participate, or just take and reap your reward. So whatever it is, and multiple things.
Right. So can you tell
Yeah.
us a little about the next big milestone for you guys?
Um, Next big milestone is TG. Like we are very focused right now. The whole team is looking forward for the date of TG. Looking
Hmm.
forward for all the IDOs that are lined up to happen, which are going to happen on multiple dates. Even before 2 days before IDO IEO, that is TGE, we are going to have one more IEO. So I mean, the whole team is currently working on. I personally think that is going to be our biggest milestone for now. That is what I can think of.
Right. Okay, wonderful. And what are the kind of okay, so now just like sort of going a little macro and zooming out
Yeah.
from the product itself,
Yeah, yeah.
there are you are somebody who critiques new age economists quite a bit. So I would love to know your how do their perspective influence your decision making in creating your vision, and
Mhm.
what which ones are some perhaps the ones that you can recommend to even our
Mhm.
listeners so that they can learn something new as well.
What I used to do before, if you would recommend, but at the very same time, the problem is, I cannot be very choosy while picking up a person like, okay, so this is the person you should be listening to, or this is not the person you should not be listening to. Because you see, I have a different perspective concerning my own company, concerning my own outlook of how Web3 ecosystem works, or concerning a very different outlook of how, the economics of a country particularly works. So for me, like if I have to say, like if I, blatantly put out, any person or any such comments, then it would be wrong on my part as well. So I mean, it's completely up to you who you follow, who you do not follow. But for me, as you asked, the very first question that you asked, like, how does it influence my decision making? Like, how do these people's, discussions or things influence my decision making? So let me tell you one thing: it does not influence much, because I have a very different, outlook, and I work on a trickle down effect. So if you understand trickle down effect in a very layman's language, it's more like what people perceive one thing and what is the end goal of that particular thing, and how does the end goal is kind of manipulated or reached due to the perception of a particular person or particular market. So I work on that trickle down effect. So if you have to ask me how has that affected me, then let me tell you one thing: on the very basis level, on the very basic level, or the product level, or the tech level, it hasn't, because I'm still working for interoperability, and that is still the biggest source of inspiration, problem solving, whatever you call it, something that I very much look up to and look forward to solving it. That is still there. But when you talk about how to bring in the people to understand this thing, yes, that has to be done from product level. So in that way, yes, I'm being affected. So as I said, I introduced multi-chain restaking, multi-chain staking. I've introduced stable currencies. So these are going to be the point where these markets can touch me, or these markets can come and inside the ecosystem then to understand what I'm exactly solving. So definitely they do have an impact, but not that great of an impact, because at the basic level, I'm definitely going to solve, I'm looking forward to solve this problem. And it's just not me, it could be people like you know, I can work with you, or people, you know, so many people out there, which I personally believe can solve this problem, you know, with me or without me, you know, that's a different thing. So the problem still persists, I want to solve it, but on the surface level, yes. From the product level, I would definitely like to lure in people using the languages that they understand. So right now, the narrative in the market is, as I'm seeing, restaking is the narrative in the market. RWAs are the narrative in the market. There are multiple layer twos, layer three coming. They are the new narrative in the market. So that is there. So I may use such narratives to lure in the people, but at the end of the day, I'm going to solve a very fundamental problem. So that's what I'm looking forward
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful perspective
to.
to have here. Can you also now perhaps
Right.
touch upon the kind of challenges that you've faced so far? And I think because we are running short on time, I think this will be our
Yes, yes,
penultimate
sure, sure,
question
sure.
before we wrap it up. But I would love for you
Yeah.
to touch upon the kind of challenges, because I think that can be, your story
Mhm.
might resonate with somebody else who's building.
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, as a early stage builder, you know, the very first challenge is always, the capital, like how to gain capital, and the very next challenge is how to gain the trust. Because why I said the capital is the first challenge, not the trust is the first challenge, because the access to capital is now being consolidated again back to where we began 10 years back. So 10 years back, the access to capital was with very few people. Okay. And in between these, from 2014 to 2024, the blockchain came into place. Everything became mainstream. Quite a lot of retail people started coming in. They became angel investors, or they became the very first retail investors of your particular product. But again, all those things have been consolidated and being given back to these institutional people only, where they're deciding on a new technology with the very old concept. So the access to capital is again a new challenge for people who are building now, and it will be a challenge if you're unable to sell a very good story in the market. I mean, that thing has again become a main thing in the market. The second thing is, how do you gain trust? Like, how do you gain trust that you're the right person to solve the problems that you have mentioned? Like, for example, if I'm talking way too much about interoperability, why am I the only person, or why I am one of those person who can actually solve it? Is the trust that you have to build in the market. So these are the two very basic. And I think since 2022 or 23, the money is again going back to institutions. Institutions have started purchasing cryptocurrencies, holding them, and then consolidating the market price. The time is not far when the market prices of the cryptocurrencies are going to be decided by the way institutions are working, or the way institutions are interacting, or if they're proving to be good or bad holders of these currencies. So that time is not that far. I think by 2025, this will be a very open public debate that we'll be having. So capital access, one of the problems that is going to happen and is happening right now as we are speaking. Second is, how do you build trust in the market? So these are the two challenges that I think any newcomer will face. And again, can be faced by people who are still building or have built in the past as well. So yeah, that's there.
Right. And how would you recommend perhaps overcoming these?
The very first way is sticking to the fundamentals, and making sure that you do have some proof. Like, for example, nowadays the very widely accepted proof of whether your product is working or not is whether you have so and so many people on your on your socials or not, people talking about your token or not. That is going to be there, but that is just, I would say, 20%. The 80% is definitely going to be whether whatever you're claiming, are you able to solve it via some MVP, or via some sort of some way or the other, whether you're able to prove it or not. So that is I feel that is by far the only way to overcome it. Second comes the access to capital. The access to capital, since the narrative has changed in 1.5 years and still changing right now as we speak. So that is still, I mean, whatever I tell now, maybe 6 months down the line, that's not going to be, that problem may not be there. There could be some different problem altogether. So I exactly don't know how to tackle that, or advise you or advise anyone on that. But when I talk about gaining people's trust, at least your MVP will definitely go a long way. And I've seen MVP going a long way since so many times. since past decade, no matter how many times they have been done. So, I mean, you have to do that. You got to do what you got to do. That's it.
Right. Yeah, just keep building and making sure that you're staying true to your path.
Yes,
I
yes. I
feel
mean,
that
there's
you'll
no other
get there.
way. Yeah,
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 there is just there's no shortcut basically, and there is no
100% there
way
is.
that you can do like an overnight success. It takes years of
Yes,
consistent
yes.
building to actually get
And
to a place where you're comfortable.
yes, yes. At least in my case, that is true. I don't know. There are multiple people who are lucky in this environment who can have very good
I
stories to
don't
sell.
think
They
there's
can
there's
get.
anybody who does like an overnight sort of a success. I think it is always like
No,
consistent
there is
effort
no
and really.
overnight success. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
those moonshots look
I
like
so much
them.
agree with you.
Yeah, there are moonshots at times, but I really think that everybody, even the people who have like a moonshot, they fail at
Mhm.
some point or the other, and they build up to the point where they
Yes,
reach. So that is like a complete misnomer. It's a
right, right.
myth
That
that
is true. That
people
is true.
can really just hit it, they can get lucky, and luck plays a part certainly, but there are other factors as well, and we should try to control the ones that we can, right? Luck is not something that you can perhaps potentially control, but if you're working hard and
Right, right.
smart enough, you would
Mhm.
be lucky. So now
100%. Yes, that's
I
true.
would love to, I would love this conversation to keep going on because we've touched upon such important factors in we
Right.
interoperability and, just very relevant topics. But Nitesh,
Mhm.
you are sadly out of time, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this one question that
Yes,
I
I'm
ask
so sorry.
everybody who comes on this particular
Uh-huh.
show. You've mentioned about the challenges and how to
Okay.
overcome them, but because you were also somebody who got into Web3 because of curiosity, and if there is somebody who is
Yes.
perhaps curious like you at this moment in time about Web3, about blockchain,
Mhm.
decentralized technologies, what would be your advice to them for them to start living on blockchain?
Uh, I mean, follow your curiosity. I mean, first of all, you have to. I personally think curiosity is a very wide, a very absurd, not absurd. I would say it's a very ambiguous. It's a very ambiguous word because you can be curious about certain things that I know there are people who are very curious about how the marketing in Web3 works. I'm very certain there are many people curious about how community building works, how the product itself works, or how the economics behind the whole ecosystem works. So I mean, I would just say the follow your curiosity, and apply whatever you have learned in different sectors of your life. Like for example, it doesn't matter whether you're from sports background, you're from science background, economics background, arts background. Whatever you have learned and whatever you're curious about, just try to build or try to interact with that curiosity plus the talent you have been generating or you have been honing since the past so many years of your life. So that's the only way. Like the central the if you draw a Venn diagram, the common point where your talent and your curiosity meets is the very sweet spot that you should start developing on that. Definitely, as Tarusha, you yourself mentioned, that it's definitely nothing is not overnight success. So I mean, please keep that in mind. First stroke isn't always going to work, and do not give up on that. Please keep working on that very sweet spot, and I'm pretty sure something good will definitely come out of it, because I'm a very good believer of nature, and if there are problems in nature, the nature itself provides the solution. We just have to be open for that. That's it.
Yeah, I think that is like wonderful advice. And, because if you are open to sort of solving, there are many things that
Yes.
can happen. You have to be open to learning and unlearning and building. And it's going to be a
Right,
little
right.
hard, but following your curiosity will get you to places because, you're solving problems that you are facing. And if you can
100%.
really validate that particular idea and see if there are others facing that problem, then, you have like a good idea on your hands. So that's really good advice, Nitesh.
Right, right.
Thank you so much once again
Thanks a
for
lot.
talking to us. Any parting thoughts before we wrap this up?
Thanks a lot, Tarusha. I mean, the only parting thoughts will be, please, I mean, focus more on the fundamentals of the problem rather than just the narrative, because the narrative is always, the greed of the economics behind everything that is happening. So, without following the narrative, I mean, please keep following the narrative, whatever is happening in the market, but stick to the fundamentals, because that is what got us to, being accepted worldwide. It got blockchain to be accepted worldwide. Let's stick to our fundamentals, and yes, definitely keep an eye on the narrative, but not work only because there's a narrative in the market.
Very, very good words to end this with. Do
Thanks a lot,
follow
Tarisha.
the trends, and do not just follow the trend for the heck
Yeah,
of it. So that
for
is
the
that
heck
is
of
what
it.
is important. Yeah. So thank you so much
100%.
once again, Nitesh, for speaking to us. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thanks a lot, Tarisha. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and that was a very beautiful conversation.